Hi, I am Sophia. Welcome to True Payback, where story hits different. Hit subscribe. Let's dive in.
My name is Maya Ellison. I am 33 years old. I run a boutique forensic consulting firm out of Philadelphia. And for 6 years I funded my family's life while they told anyone who would listen that I had never done a thing for them. I want to tell you exactly how that happened. And I want to tell you how it ended. At a Thanksgiving table in front of 17 relatives, with a man named David Chen opening a binder to page 1. But first I need to tell you about the version of me that existed before any of this. Because she matters. She is the reason all of it hurt as much as it did. I grew up the middle child in a family that had a clear hierarchy and had decided very early not to revise it. My older brother, Derek, was the golden one. He was handsome and loud and carried himself through rooms the way people do when they have never once been told they are wrong. He played college football for 2 years before a knee injury ended it, and my parents treated that injury like a national tragedy for approximately the next decade. Everything Derek needed after that, the failed car dealership they bankrolled, the wedding they funded, the house down payment they gave him, was framed as the family rallying around someone who had sacrificed. My younger sister, Priya, was the beloved one. Priya was soft and sweet and had a talent for crying at exactly the right moments. She was also, I would later learn, exceptionally skilled at borrowing money she never intended to return. And then there was me, Maya, the serious one. The one who read too much and laughed too little according to my mother. The one who asked too many questions according to my father. I got a full scholarship to Penn State for accounting, came home the summer before my junior year to find my mother had opened a credit card in my name to cover a family vacation to Myrtle Beach, and decided quietly that I would not make a scene about it. That was my first mistake. Not the last. I graduated with honors. I took a position at a mid-size forensic accounting firm in Philadelphia. I was good at the work. Genuinely, deeply good at it. In the way that sometimes happens when someone finds the exact intersection of their skills and their instincts. I understood numbers the way some people understand people. I could look at a financial statement and feel where something was wrong before I could articulate why. My supervising partner, a sharp and demanding woman named Carol Reeves, told me in my 3rd year that I had the best instincts she'd seen in 20 years of practice. I loved my job. I had an apartment in Fairmount with a small balcony where I grew tomatoes in summer. I had a best friend named Jess who taught high school chemistry and came over every other Friday for wine and terrible reality television. I had a cat named Archimedes who treated me with the specific disdain that only cats and certain senior partners can pull off. I was building something real and I was proud of it and it was mine. My family found it deeply suspicious. "You're always working," my mother would say on the phone in a tone that made work sound like a character flaw. "When are you going to settle down?" my father would ask, which meant, "When are you going to become someone easier to explain at church?" "Must be nice," Derek would say about my apartment, my job, my life, any part of it that had not been handed to him, in a way that converted my accomplishment into an accusation. I told myself it was just how they were. I told myself families had friction. I told myself it didn't matter. I kept telling myself that for a long time. It started with my father's business. Dad had run a small HVAC company for 20 years. He was good with customers and terrible with books, and in the spring of my 26th year he called me on a Tuesday night and told me the business was 3 months behind on payroll taxes and the IRS was sending letters. His voice had a quality I had never heard in it before. Something close to fear. I paid it. $47,000, drawn from savings I had been building for 3 years. I told myself it was a loan. I did not get that in writing. My second mistake, and I knew it was a mistake even as I made it, and I made it anyway because he was my father and his voice had sounded like that. 6 months later my mother called. Priya's college tuition. Priya was 22, late to start, enrolled in a nursing program, was short by $14,000 and the semester was about to be disrupted. I transferred the money. I told myself I'd be paid back by Christmas. I was not paid back by Christmas. What happened instead was that the requests became part of the texture of my life. They did not come as crises anymore. They came as assumptions. A text from Mom in February. "The car payment is going to be late, can you cover it?" A call from Dad in April. "The water heater gave out, we need $3,200. A message from Derek. Always the most aggressive, always framed as if I owed him something. In June. "The dealership needs a bridge loan or we're shutting down. Family helps family." I kept a spreadsheet. This was, I suppose, the forensic accountant in me refusing to go fully silent. I recorded every transfer, every amount, every date, every stated reason. I labeled it with a name I chose deliberately: family record. In the first year, $71,400. In the second year, $89,300. In the third year, $94,600. By the end of year 3, I had transferred $255,000 to various members of my family, and not one of them had ever, in any conversation at any dinner table at any holiday gathering, acknowledged that this had happened. What they had done instead was begin to call me selfish. I don't know exactly when it started. These things don't have clean beginnings. But I became aware slowly that a story was circulating about me in the family. A story in which I was the one who had pulled away, who had gotten too good for everyone, who prioritized career over family, who never helped, who never gave, who only took. I heard versions of it from my aunt at Easter. I heard a version of it from Derek's wife at a birthday party. I heard the most polished version of it from my father's own mouth at a 4th of July cookout, delivered to my cousin Marcus while I was standing close enough to hear every word. I went home that night and I sat on my balcony with Archimedes in my lap and I looked at my family records spreadsheet and I thought about what Carol had told me years earlier. The numbers always tell the story. Your job is just to make sure the right people hear it. I had been making deposits. Someone had been making withdrawals. And I had been so busy keeping records that I had not looked at what else they might have been recording. His name was David Chen. He was 41, methodical, mild-mannered, with a dry sense of humor and a professional reputation that had made 3 Fortune 500 companies very nervous over the years. He was also the senior partner I had been promoted to work alongside 2 years earlier, and he had become, in the careful way these things sometimes happen between people who respect each other's minds, a genuine friend. I did not tell him about my family for a long time. Then one afternoon in September we were working late on a corporate embezzlement case, and he made an offhand comment about how the most sophisticated fraud he ever saw was always perpetrated by someone the victim trusted completely. I looked at my coffee. I looked at the deposition in front of me. And then, without entirely planning to, I told him everything. He listened without interrupting, which was one of the things I valued most about him. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Have you ever run your own credit report?" I had not recently. I pulled it up on my laptop while he watched. There were 3 credit cards I had never applied for. Combined balance, $62,400. All had been opened in the last 4 years. 2 were in my name. 1 was in my name with my mother listed as an authorized user. My hands were steady when I looked at them. This surprised me. "I'd like to help you build the full picture," David said. "If you want it." I did want it. It took us 6 weeks, working evenings and weekends around our regular caseload. David pulled every record I could authorize. Bank statements, credit applications, wire transfer logs, utility accounts. 2 of my father's business loans had my name listed as co-signer on documents I had never seen. My signature, according to a document examiner David brought in quietly, had been reproduced on 3 of them, not forged clumsily but traced carefully, the kind of reproduction that takes time and intention. The total, when David compiled the final report, was $347,000 in documented transfers I had made voluntarily, plus $62,400 in fraudulent credit accounts, plus $142,000 in loans carrying my forged signature, plus the original $47,000 tax payment that had started all of it. $598,000. Spread across 6 years. While my family told the extended family that I had never given them a thing. David set the completed binder on my desk on a Wednesday afternoon and said nothing for a moment. Then he said, "What do you want to do?" I thought about it for 3 days. I thought about it while I watered my tomatoes, which were done for the season. I thought about it while Archimedes sat on the window ledge and ignored me with great dedication. I thought about it on Friday night when Jess came over and I told her finally the whole story and she sat very still and then said, "Maya, you have to stop protecting them." Thanksgiving was 6 weeks away. There are things I want you to understand about my family that do not fit neatly into the story of what they did to me. My father grew up in a household where money was something that passed through without stopping, where his own father had been chronically unreliable and his mother had held 4 jobs at once. He had built his HVAC business with genuine effort and genuine pride, And I think the moment the IRS letters started coming, something broke in him. Some internal accounting of who he was. And he reached for the nearest available resource without fully examining what it meant to reach for it. This does not make what he did acceptable. But it makes it human. It makes him, in some painful way, comprehensible. My mother had learned somewhere along the way that the family narrative was her domain. She decided who was the good child and who was the difficult one, who sacrificed and who withheld, and she tended that narrative the way she tended her garden, with daily attention and firm conviction that she knew best. She had, I believe, genuinely convinced herself that I was the selfish one. The money I sent was quietly absorbed into her version of events and reclassified as simply the minimum, the floor, the baseline that did not count as help because it was not accompanied by the emotional performance she required. Derek was the most straightforward of the three. He had learned that aggression worked in this family, that money flowed toward the loudest complaint, and he had optimized for that without apparent moral conflict. Priya was the one who genuinely confused me. She was the kindest of them in individual moments. She had brought me soup once when I had the flu, had remembered small things I mentioned months later, had called me on the anniversary of my grandmother's death because she remembered it mattered to me. But she had also borrowed $14,000 that she never returned and had never in any setting corrected the family narrative about me. Kindness and complicity are not mutually exclusive. I was still learning that. I arrived at my parents' house on Thanksgiving at 2:15 in the afternoon. David drove separately and parked down the street. The plan was simple. I would go in and if what I expected to happen happened, I would text him. If the family surprised me with something other than what 6 years of evidence suggested they were, I would text him that instead and he would drive home and we would figure out another way. I walked up the front steps with a bottle of wine in one hand and 6 years of documentation in the other. Metaphorically. The actual binder was in David's bag. My father opened the door. "Here she is," he said loud enough for the room to hear. "The selfish one." The relatives laughed. 17 people in that house, including aunts and uncles and cousins and Derek's wife and Priya's new boyfriend and 2 family friends who had been coming to Thanksgiving for so long they were essentially furniture. They laughed or smiled or looked away in the particular manner of people who have heard this joke before and have decided it is essentially true. My mother shook her head with the practiced sadness she deployed for situations like this. 3 years, she said. Not $1 to this family. I set my bag down by the door. I turned and opened it. I texted David, "Come in." He appeared at the door 30 seconds later. He was wearing a charcoal suit and carrying a binder that was, by design, slightly too large to be ignored. He was calm in the way that professionals are calm when they are in entirely familiar territory. "This is David," I said. "He's a forensic accountant." The room shifted. I have been in enough professional confrontations to know what happens to the air in a room when something unexpected arrives. When the social script tears slightly and no one is sure what comes next. That happened. My father's laugh stopped mid-exhale. Derek straightened in his chair. My mother's expression moved through 3 different configurations in about 4 seconds. "It's Thanksgiving," my father said. "What is this?" "You said I've never contributed to this family," I said. "I thought we should look at the actual record." "Maya, this is not," Mom started. David set the binder on the dining room table. He opened it to page 1. "I'll begin with the documented voluntary transfers," he said, in the tone of a man who has testified in federal court 14 times. "From March of 2018 through October of 2024. Total, $347,000. He turned to the first set of exhibits. Bank records. Wire confirmations. Every transfer I had logged in my family records spreadsheet, now presented in a format that would hold up in any courtroom in the country. The room was very quiet. "That's private," my father said. "These are Ms. Ellison's own financial records," David said pleasantly. "She is entitled to share them." He turned to the next section. IRS settlement, April 2018, $47,000. Nursing program tuition fall semester 2019, $14,000. Vehicle payments, February through December 2020, $11,400. Home equity line interest coverage 2021, $22,800. He read each line with the same unhurried precision. Numbers that had existed only in my spreadsheet and in my memory now filling the room like weather. My cousin Marcus, who had heard my father describe me as a disappointment 6 months ago at a cookout, was staring at the table. Page 8, David said, covers the credit accounts. Derek said, there's no. 3 credit accounts opened in Ms. Ellison's name between 2020 and 2023, David continued. She did not apply for any of them. Combined current balance, $62,400. One account lists a family member as an authorized user. He looked up briefly. He did not name who. He didn't need to. My mother's face had gone through another series of configurations and had arrived somewhere that was difficult to describe. It was not guilt exactly. It was more like the expression of someone who has been certain of their footing for years and has just felt the ground shift. This is slander, Derek said loudly. It's documentation, I said. There's a difference. You of all people should appreciate that. Page 12, David said, addresses the loan instruments. He laid out 3 loan documents. He laid out the document examiner's report beside them. He explained in clear and level language that signatures appearing on 2 cosigner lines had been produced by tracing rather than by the signatory. He explained what that was called legally. He used the word once, clearly without emphasis, and let it sit. Priya had not said anything. I looked at her across the table. She was looking at her hands. I thought about the anniversary call she'd made and about the $14,000 and about the complicated and irreconcilable truth that both of those things were equally real. The total documented figure, David said, returning to the first page, is $598,400 over a period of 6 years, during which time, based on interviews and records, Ms. Ellison was characterized to extended family members as someone who had, and I am quoting directly, never given a dollar to this family. He closed the binder. The room was the quietest I had ever heard a room full of 17 people be. My father was looking at the tablecloth. My mother was very still. Derek had his arms crossed and his jaw set and the expression of a man furious at being caught rather than sorry for what he'd done. His wife, to her credit, was looking at him with an expression I could not entirely read but that contained very little sympathy. I had thought about this moment for 6 weeks. I had wondered how it would feel. I had expected some version of triumph or relief, or the cold satisfaction of a record finally corrected. What I felt instead was tired. Genuinely bone-deeply tired. Not just from 6 years of transfers and silence and the slow erosion of being loved conditionally and poorly. Tired in the way you are when something has been heavy for so long that putting it down doesn't feel like freedom yet. It just feels like the absence of a weight you'd forgotten you were carrying. I'm not pressing charges, I said. That's a decision I've already made, and it's not conditional on anything you do or say in the next 5 minutes. I want to be clear about that. My father looked up. What I am doing, I said, is stopping. All of it. As of this morning, every recurring transfer has been cancelled. The accounts that were opened in my name are being closed and disputed. I've retained an attorney to address the loan documents. That process is moving forward regardless. Maya, my mother started. I'm not finished, I said. Not loudly. I didn't need to be loud. You're going to hear a version of this story over the next few weeks. You're going to tell it to yourselves and to each other, and you're going to find a way to make me the villain in it because that is what you have always done. I can't stop that. I'm not trying to. I paused. But everyone in this room has now seen what David brought today. That doesn't go away. Whatever story you tell, every person here knows the actual number. I picked up my bag. I hope you have a good Thanksgiving, I said. I'm going to go have mine. I went to Jess's apartment. She had made a full spread, turkey and 3 sides and a pie from the bakery on Fairmount Avenue, and she had invited 2 other friends, and we ate at a table that fit 5 people and felt more full than any Thanksgiving I could recently remember. I told her how it had gone. She listened, refilled my wine, and said, "How do you feel?" "Tired," I said. "And kind of okay." "That's probably right," she said. The consequences came in the order David had predicted they would. The disputed credit accounts triggered a review process that surfaced the unauthorized applications. My attorney sent letters, and the 2 accounts with forged cosigner documentation became a matter that my father's attorney advised him very strongly to settle. The settlement, reached in January, included restitution structured as a formal repayment agreement. the first time in 6 years that any dollar I had given my family was acknowledged in writing. Derek's dealership, which had been surviving partly on credit lines I had not realized were tied to my financial profile, lost access to one of them during the dispute period. The dealership closed in February. I did not feel the satisfaction I might have expected. I felt mostly nothing. He had built nothing worth saving and then blamed its failure on everyone but himself, which had been the pattern of his life since the knee injury, and the dealership closing was just the most recent iteration of that pattern. It was sad in the way that waste is always sad. Priya called me in December. It was a short call, and she was careful with her words, and she did not say what I most needed to hear, which would have been a simple acknowledgement that she had known the transfers were happening and had said nothing. She said instead that she thought things had gotten complicated, and that she hoped we could find our way back. I told her I hoped so too. I meant it partially. The part of me that remembered the anniversary call meant it. The rest of me was still deciding. My parents did not call for 3 months. Then my father called on a Sunday in February and he said, and I am going to give him credit for this because it cost him something, that he had not understood the full picture and that he was sorry. He did not say what he was sorry for exactly, and the apology was hedged in ways that an apology probably shouldn't be hedged. But I know my father and I know what it cost him to say a thing like that, and I accepted it for what it was rather than what it wasn't. My mother has not called. I'm not sure she will. I think she has constructed a version of events in which David's binder was an attack rather than a record, in which I am still the difficult one, in which her own culpability is arranged somehow out of view. I think she may spend the rest of her life in that version. Some people do. I have stopped needing her to leave it. Carol Reeves retired in November. She took me to lunch before she left at a restaurant in Rittenhouse Square that was too nice for a Tuesday afternoon and exactly right for the occasion. She told me the firm would be listing my name as a named partner in the new year. I drove home afterward and sat in my car for 5 minutes in the parking garage just feeling that. I still have my apartment in Fairmount. The tomatoes are back, early variety this year, climbing the trellis I built over the winter. Archimedes is 11 now and has begun to treat me with something that, on good days, resembles tolerance. Jess and I still do Friday nights. We found a worse reality show than the last one. We are both very committed to it. David and I had dinner in March. Just dinner, nothing complicated, though I notice the way he listens when I talk and I notice that I want to keep talking. We have not named what that is yet. I find that I am not in a hurry to name it. Here is what I know, and I am going to say it plainly because I think it is the thing worth saying. The money was never really the point. The money was the shape the damage took, the form it filled. What they took from me wasn't $598,400. What they took was the years I spent believing that if I gave enough, quietly enough, patiently enough, the story they told about me would change. That is what I grieve. Not the money. The years of trying to be seen by people who had decided, long before any of it, that I was the one who couldn't be. I'm not bitter. I want to be precise about that because it matters. Bitterness is something you carry, and I have been carrying things long enough. What I have instead is clarity. About what I will fund and what I won't. About whose version of me I am willing to inhabit. About the fact that chosen family is still family, maybe more so, and that a table of 5 can hold more warmth than a table of 17 if the 5 are the right people. The family records spreadsheet still exists on my laptop. I have not deleted it. I don't look at it often. But I know it's there, complete, accurate, documented, and I think I keep it for the same reason I keep anything precise. Because the truth of a thing matters even when no one but you knows it. Because someone will always know it. And that someone might as well be you.